want to thank anybody else who watched. I think the atmosphere today was amazing. It was electric, respectful.
Fans were left absolutely stunned on Saturday night as Filipino supporters transformed center court into a sea of celebration. Their deafening cheers overwhelmed the usual Wimbledon atmosphere, creating a moment few expected to witness. It wasn't just another victory, it was one of the tournament's most astonishing upsets in the last decade, and the electric reaction from the crowd made it clear that history had just been written.
I want to thank everyone who's been cheering me on and everyone who was there today and everyone who's been part of my journey.
Red, yellow, and blue flags waved proudly across Henman Hill. Near the entrance, a hand-painted sign read, "Do it for the K-Car." The energy was unlike anything Wimbledon had seen in years. Then came the moment that made everyone stop and stare. Inside the most traditional stadium in tennis, 21-year-old Alex Eala from Quezon City stood just 3 points away from knocking out defending champion Iga Swiatek. On paper, it looked impossible. Eala was ranked number 32 in the world. Swiatek was number 3 and already a 6-time Grand Slam champion. But this wasn't just about rankings anymore. If Eala pulled it off, the scoreboard wouldn't simply record another upset. It would redefine what a Filipino athlete could achieve on one of the biggest stages in world sport. To understand how a young girl who once rushed from school to tennis practice wearing ruffled socks and light-up shoes found herself dismantling one of the game's greatest champions on Wimbledon's sacred grass, you have to rewind exactly 27 days. Now here's the question everyone was asking. Would Alex Eala become the first Southeast Asian woman in the Open era to reach a Grand Slam quarterfinal? Or would the enormous weight of an entire nation's expectations finally catch up with her? Let me know your prediction in the comments before we continue. 27 days before stepping onto center court, Eala staged a remarkable comeback to capture the Birmingham grass court title after recovering from a set down. It marked her second WTA 125 trophy of the season and hinted that something special was beginning to unfold. She wasn't finished. Just days later in Berlin, she stunned the tennis world by defeating world number 2 Elena Rybakina before following it up with another statement win over world number 8 Elena Svitolina. Beating 2 top 10 players on grass in consecutive matches wasn't luck, it was a warning. By the time Wimbledon began, Eala had already built a perfect 3-0 record against top 10 opponents on grass during the 2026 season. That meant Swiatek wasn't facing an unknown underdog. She was walking into the next chapter of a story that players throughout the locker room had already begun to respect, and perhaps even fear. The warning signs were there before the tournament had even started. During her pre-Wimbledon press conference, Swiatek was asked about the possibility of facing Eala. According to Tennis Head, her response was brief but revealing. "I don't particularly know her game on grass. Obviously, I can watch a little bit." It was a surprising admission. After all, Swiatek had already lost to Eala once before, in the 2025 Miami Open quarterfinal, where the young Filipina shocked her in straight sets, 6-2, 7-5. Yet the defending Wimbledon champion openly acknowledged that she still hadn't fully studied Eala's grass court game. Meanwhile, something extraordinary was happening around the grounds. Every time Eala played, the Filipino support grew louder. For her second-round match on court 12, fans began lining up before sunrise just to secure a seat. Photos showed supporters proudly carrying a giant Philippine flag through Wimbledon's immaculate grounds, turning one of tennis' most reserved venues into a festival of national pride. And when Eala sealed the victory, she leaned into the microphone and thanked her supporters in Tagalog, a simple gesture that made the moment even more unforgettable and sent waves of emotion through fans watching both in London and back home in the Philippines.
Maraming salamat mga kababayan. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very, very much. Those were Alex Eala's first words after the biggest victory of her career. By the time she walked onto center court that Saturday, she wasn't playing only for herself anymore. She was carrying an entire nation with her. Every cheer felt like it came from home. Wimbledon hadn't simply welcomed Filipino fans, it had become their temporary embassy. The opening set alone lasted an astonishing 84 minutes. Not the match, just the first set. It had everything. Eala erased 2 set points against her, created 4 of her own, and refused to blink. Finally, after an exhausting 20-point tiebreak, she broke Iga Swiatek's resistance. On her 4th set point, Swiatek pushed a forehand long, center court erupted. The numbers afterward told a remarkable story. Eala converted 5 of her 7 breakpoint opportunities and saved 8 of the 11 she faced. She struck 24 winners while committing only 21 unforced errors. Swiatek, meanwhile, finished with 32 winners, but also an astonishing 44 unforced errors. That wasn't luck. That was complete control. Imagine what was going through Swiatek's mind. You're the reigning Wimbledon champion, a 6-time Grand Slam winner, one of the greatest players of your generation. Yet across the net, a 21-year-old Filipina was reading your game, solving every puzzle you threw at her, and slowly taking the match away from you on tennis' most famous court. By the second set, the momentum had completely shifted. Eala raced through it 6-2. Somewhere during that stretch came the image that every Filipino tennis fan will remember forever. She slipped on the grass and crashed to the court. But instead of giving up on the point, she stretched out her racket from the ground and somehow kept the rally alive. She didn't win that exchange. She won the next point, and then the one after that. Champions don't always reveal themselves by winning impossible points. Sometimes they reveal themselves by refusing to let one lost point affect the next. When match point finally arrived, Eala needed 3 chances. On the third opportunity, she ripped her 24th winner of the afternoon, a fearless forehand that landed cleanly inside the line. She dropped her racket. Then the tears came. Her post-match interview became almost as unforgettable as the victory itself. "I'm really emotional," she admitted. "For someone like Iga, who's won so many Grand Slams, or for someone like Serena or Venus, this achievement might seem small. But for someone who grew up in the Philippines, who went to practice every day after school with my brother and my grandfather, wearing ruffled socks, light-up shoes, and with chubby cheeks, this means everything." It wasn't just a speech. It was every childhood dream suddenly becoming real. Then came the sentence that revealed exactly why her journey isn't finished. "But because I'm emotional doesn't mean I'm satisfied. So, next round, let's go." That single line perfectly captured who Alex Eala has become. She celebrated the moment, but she was already thinking about the next challenge. Anyone who has followed this channel over the past year probably wasn't surprised. You said the Miami victory over Swiatek wasn't a fluke. You believed the rankings simply hadn't caught up with her level yet. On Saturday, they finally did, and the rankings looked almost meaningless. Across TikTok, X, and Instagram, one comment appeared over and over again. "Why am I crying during her speech like I'm Filipino?" That may have been the greatest compliment of all. A country known around the world for boxing and basketball suddenly made millions of tennis fans feel like honorary Filipinos. The praise didn't stop with ordinary fans. One of the greatest champions ever to grace center court reached out. Venus Williams, a 7-time Grand Slam singles champion, 5-time Wimbledon winner, and Eala's doubles partner earlier this season, congratulated her on making history. That wasn't admiration from a distance. That was validation from someone who had shared the court with her. Then came another message from an entirely different sporting legend, Manny Pacquiao. The only 8-division boxing world champion and arguably the most famous Filipino athlete ever simply said, "Proud, very, very proud." Keep it up. When a Wimbledon legend and a global boxing icon celebrate the same athlete in the same week, the message is impossible to ignore. Alex Eala isn't knocking on the door of tennis elite anymore. She's already inside. The ripple effects of this victory extend far beyond one afternoon at Wimbledon. Swiatek is projected to fall outside the WTA top 5 after failing to defend the 2,000 ranking points she earned as champion. After the match, she admitted, "Honestly, I don't care anymore about the results." It's a quote that will follow her into the North American hard court season, where even more ranking points await. For Eala, however, the opportunity is even bigger. No woman from Southeast Asia has ever reached a Grand Slam quarterfinal in the Open era. Not one. She now stands one victory away from becoming the first. Waiting for her is Jasmine Paolini, the 2024 Wimbledon finalist and number 13 seed. The matchup is fascinating because Eala already defeated Paolini earlier this season in Dubai, winning 6-1, 7-6. Meanwhile, tennis in the Philippines is experiencing a transformation in real time. The country hosted its first ever WTA tournament just months ago. National broadcasters cleared primetime television schedules to show her Wimbledon matches live. Nike has embraced her as one of its rising stars. The US Open, where she won the junior title in 2022, is fast approaching. The tennis world is changing, and one 21-year-old is helping redraw the map. But none of this happened overnight. Back in January at the Australian Open, the pressure nearly overwhelmed her. Thousands of Filipino supporters packed Melbourne Park, even lining up just to watch her practice sessions. The expectations became so overwhelming that her tournament ended much earlier than many had hoped. Fast forward 5 months. Now she's sitting in a Wimbledon press room wearing a Nike visor embroidered with the Tagalog phrase, "Kapag umugong hindi hihinto," a reminder that once momentum begins, it refuses to stop. Asked how she handles the expectations, her answer reflected the discipline that built this moment. "My team, my family, and I are the ones putting in the work," she said. The ones spending 12 hours at the courts. We're the ones waking up early and getting home late. That's what keeps me grounded. From struggling with expectation in January to breaking the defending champion's serve on center court in July. 5 months, that's all it took. A little girl with ruffled socks, light-up shoes, a visor stitched in her own language, a crowd that made Wimbledon sound like Manila, and a defending champion who admitted she hadn't fully prepared for what was coming. Years ago, at the Rafa Nadal Academy, Iga Swiatek handed Eala her graduation certificate and encouraged students to stay resilient. On Saturday, the student finished that lesson herself, with a straight sets victory on center court. Eala didn't simply defeat the defending Wimbledon champion. She proved that a nation rarely mentioned in tennis conversations can step onto the sport's most prestigious stage and leave with the atmosphere, the headlines, and the belief that history belongs to them too. Now it's your turn. Eala faces Jasmine Paolini in the round of 16, a player she has already beaten this season. Does she become the first Southeast Asian woman in the Open era to reach a Grand Slam quarterfinal, or does the pressure finally catch up with her? Leave your prediction in the comments, including the score. And if you've been following this journey since Miami, Berlin, or Birmingham, make sure you're subscribed. Because whatever happens next, you'll be able to say you witnessed the rise of Eala before the rest of the tennis world truly caught on.